to me when I was on the show, and we had such good times together. I was probably 18, and Malcolm was probably 17, 16, I don't know.
Wow.
And we would take walks together, all of us, and pick up food, talk, played basketball, hung out on the weekends, went to parties together. He was so good.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner's demise has sent shockwaves not just through Hollywood, but deep into the heart of the Black community. At 54, the man so many of us first met as the lovable Theo Huxtable was suddenly inexplicably gone. And while the official line from Costa Rican authorities is a clean, clinical accidental drowning, that sterile conclusion hasn't stopped the questions from building louder each day, whispered in back rooms, shouted across social media, and dissected in green room conversations no publicist wants transcribed. Warner's passing feels less like an accident and more like a ripple that pulled back the curtain on an industry that's always demanded silence from those it can't control.
NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner has at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for...
Here's what we know, or what we're being told anyway. Warner was vacationing with his family in Costa Rica. He entered the water at Playa Grande and was swept away by a current. Bystanders pulled him back to shore. The Costa Rican Red Cross reportedly worked on him for over 20 minutes, but it was already too late. And then there's the second man, a 29-year-old from Nicaragua. No connection to Warner, no explanation for his presence. He was also in the water trying to help, we're told. He was hospitalized in critical condition, and now, just like that, discharged. Stable, silent, nameless. The identity of this supposed Good Samaritan has been kept locked down tighter than a Marvel plot leak. Not one photo, not one interview, not even a fuzzy quote from a distant cousin. That secrecy alone has tongues wagging. Who is this man? Why is there no record of how he ended up there in the first place? Was he really just a bystander with heroic instincts? Or something more? Placed? Embedded? Some online sleuths are already calling it the mysterious rescuer conspiracy, pointing to anonymous tips that Warner had been under quiet surveillance during his Costa Rican stay. The beach where he drowned, Playa Grande, is a known vacation hideaway, but it's also off the radar enough to avoid paparazzi. Was this trip really just a family escape, or was it something else? A final moment of peace before going public with something dangerous.
I wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like, if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile. And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else.
And that's where things get even darker. According to 3 separate music industry insiders, 2 of whom worked with Warner on his 2024 podcast, the actor had recently recorded a bombshell episode for Not All Hood, the introspective series he co-hosted. The episode, which still hasn't been released, reportedly focused on the racism, rejection, and industry-level suppression Black actors face when they refuse to traffic in stereotypes. Warner, by all accounts, was done biting his tongue. One former collaborator says he was ready to name names, not just casting directors but execs at major studios who blacklisted him after he refused to coon it up for sitcom roles in the early 2000s. Another said Warner had hired legal counsel after a major platform allegedly refused to air the episode without revisions.
Oh, so unbelievable there. And Branson, I also was reading that just days ago, he had another podcast episode that was dropped, and now a lot of fans are starting to really listen to that as maybe one of his last times that you hear him.
And now, Warner's gone, the episode's master files are missing, and the podcast Instagram account hasn't posted since July 17th, 3 days before the drowning. No statements, no tributes, no explanations, like someone hit pause on the whole project. Of course, no one wants to believe foul play. It's more comfortable to call it a freak accident and move on, but that comfort is a luxury not everyone can afford, especially when we consider how Hollywood has treated those who've dared to speak out. Ask Monique, ask Isaiah Washington, ask anyone who's publicly challenged the system's shiny, smiling mask. The pattern is undeniable. If you play the game, they protect you. If you question it, they erase you. Sometimes slowly, sometimes overnight. Malcolm never had a scandal, never made tabloid headlines. He moved with care, dignity, purpose, and yet still, somehow, ended up marginalized by the very machine that once sold his face to middle America as a blueprint for Black excellence. That dissonance is exactly what made his podcast so potent. He wasn't angry, he was honest. And in this town, honesty is currency. No one wants you spending freely.
It's for everything I'm telling you. That's why I can say them so freely.
Ken, I need to know. You here, get your number.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Shockable.
Which brings us to Katt Williams, the man who saw it coming long before the cameras rolled. Katt, that walking, wild-haired truth grenade, has been sounding alarms about Hollywood's shadow network for over a decade. The late-night parties, the secret deals, the whispered threats. People laughed when he said the industry was crawling with elite fixers and handlers. They're not laughing now, especially not after Warner's demise eerily echoes themes Williams has been warning about for years.
All lies will be exposed, that's all. And anyone who takes that the wrong way, know why they take it the wrong way.
And now, posthumously, Warner seems to be slotting right into the pattern. A talented Black entertainer who matured out of their marketable box, refused to be owned, started talking, then disappeared just as they were about to tell us something we needed to hear. In a resurfaced 2024 interview, Williams told fans to look out for the ones who stop smiling. He wasn't joking. The ones who stop smiling and start asking questions are the ones who disappear. Warner hadn't stopped smiling, but he had started talking. Carefully, purposefully, and with a clarity that scared people. He didn't name the devil, but he pointed to the flames. That was enough. And now, in what feels like a cosmic echo, Katt is back in the headlines again, commenting on Diddy's unraveling empire, predicting chaos for what he called big-name deviants, and reminding us that he's turned down tens of millions just to keep his soul intact. P. Diddy be wanting to party, he said, and you gotta tell him no. It was a joke, but it wasn't funny.
I've not been funded. They pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They tell you that themselves.
Because if Katt's warnings about Diddy are proving accurate, if federal raids, seized evidence, and whispered witness lists are just the beginning, then what else has he been right about? About the secret contracts? About the industry's hidden enforcers? About the parties that aren't parties at all? And where, exactly, did Warner fit into all this? Was he just a beloved actor trying to find peace in middle age? Or was he a whistleblower in progress, one who waited too long to hit upload? As the days stretched on with no clarity, no answers, and no podcast episode, the silence is starting to sound like a cover-up. And let's not forget, when Katt Williams speaks, he rarely misses. His 2024 warning wasn't just some big jab at celebrity corruption. He was direct. He named names. He called out deviants and said they'd be catching hell this year. That was months before Diddy got hit with federal charges, before the feds raided mansions filled with party footage, and long before Warner's tragic end on that quiet Costa Rican beach. Williams wasn't just forecasting trouble, he was drawing a line between survival and submission, between those who play along and those who don't make it back.
Right, because P. Diddy be wanting to party. And you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did.
And what makes Katt so dangerous to the system is exactly that. He doesn't play. He's turned down offers most people would do anything for, walked away from contracts stacked with millions of dollars. Why? Because, according to him, the price tag came with strings, the kind that pull you into a place you might never escape. I had to turn down $50 million 4 times, he told Shannon Sharpe, just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. That's not a punchline. That's a warning dressed up as a laugh. This is a man who's been arrested, blacklisted, humiliated, and still won't sit down. He's the one who went on record about turning down Diddy's infamous parties. And when the baby oil shipment story broke, Katt didn't flinch. He reposted clips, dropped memes, and basically dared anyone to call him a liar. When everyone else in the industry kept their heads low, hoping to dodge fallout, Katt walked right through the fire with a lighter in his hand. And maybe that's why so many now believe Warner's demise isn't just a tragedy, it's a warning shot.
Historic and frozen in time as this iconic character. What did that mean for television, and what does it still mean to this day?
Sam, Theo Huxtable was me. Theo Huxtable was my brother's. Theo Huxtable was the first time someone that looked like me saw someone that looked like himself on television. He was the epitome of what we as kids, in a certain community were growing.
There's a name some online circles have whispered for years, the Theo curse. A loaded phrase, sure, but one that reflects a real pattern many are too uncomfortable to confront. Malcolm-Jamal Warner may have been the latest, but he's hardly the first. Former child star to meet tragedy after walking away from the machine that made them. And for those who grew up in the bright, cold spotlight of 1980s and 90s television, especially Black performers, the pattern gets even more unnerving. The formula is familiar: a young breakout star, a wholesome image, a post-fame descent into silence or chaos, and a suspicious lack of support when it matters most. Barry Coleman comes to mind immediately, once the most famous Black child on television, thanks to different strokes. He passed away alone, broke, and bitter after suing his parents and business advisors over financial mismanagement. The industry didn't lift a finger to intervene. Orlando Brown, once Disney royalty, spiraled into erratic behavior and legal trouble, becoming the punchline of viral memes before disappearing into the rehab to reality show pipeline. Amanda Bynes, though not Black, followed a disturbingly similar arc after stepping out of the studio mold that had defined her entire adolescence. None of these stories are exactly the same, but they rhyme in all the worst ways.
I hate to bring up the sad news, but news did break today of the untimely passing of Malcolm-Jamal
I can't believe it.
What connects them isn't just fame or misfortune, it's rebellion. Each of them at some point tried to assert control over their identity, their image, their art, and each time the industry's response was to isolate, vilify, or ignore. The message was clear: play your part or pay the price. For Warner, the so-called curse didn't come in the form of public meltdowns or viral outbursts. His resistance was quiet, calculated, mature. But maybe that only made it more dangerous. He wasn't a spectacle. He was a threat, a stable, articulate adult with receipts, and the nerve to call things by their name. And while the media loves to blame personal demons or mental health struggles, it rarely asks why those demons show up in the first place. What happens to a person raised by a camera crew, commodified by age 12, then discarded before 30? What safety net exists for Black child actors who can't or won't morph into caricatures of themselves to keep the checks coming? For too many, the answer is none. It's not a curse, it's a system. And Warner, like those before him, saw it up close.
When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them.
By invoking the Theo curse, we're not talking about superstition. We're talking about cycles. Cycles of exploitation, abandonment, and quiet erasure. And the fact that we can list name after name, generation after generation, tells us that Warner's passing isn't just a personal loss. It's part of a larger reckoning that's long overdue. When do we stop pretending these patterns are coincidental and start calling them what they are? Consequences of a system that rewards obedience and punishes evolution. Warner wasn't loud, he wasn't reckless, he didn't have enemies in the tabloids. But what he did have in those final months was a growing platform, one that didn't need Hollywood's permission, and maybe that's the point. Maybe that's what made him dangerous. In the age of independent podcasts, viral clips, and digital receipts, the old guard can't afford unscripted voices with clean reputations and long memories. Katt's still here, for now, but the pattern is undeniable. When Black entertainers reject the role they're given, the consequences come fast and they come quiet.
Know that this incident took place on Sunday in Costa Rica. He was on a family vacation. He was swimming off of the coast of a town called Cocles in the province of Limon. He was swimming at Playa Grande. I mean, I've visited Costa Rica a few times. I was there with my family a few years ago, and those currents can be...
And the hypocrisy? It's suffocating. The same networks and studios that ghosted Warner for years are now tripping over each other to post filtered tributes and slide his name into award show montages. The same executives who wouldn't return his calls suddenly have deep respect for his legacy. Beyoncé added a black and white photo to her website. A nice touch, sure, but where was that love when Warner was pitching indie projects and getting passed over for roles that went to lesser-known names with better handlers? Where were these mourners when his podcast struggled for sponsorship? Hollywood didn't support Malcolm-Jamal Warner. It tolerated him. And only once he could no longer speak for himself did the industry finally find a voice on his behalf. Let's be real. If Warner had truly been embraced by the mainstream during his life, he wouldn't have needed to build his own podcast just to say what mattered to him. The same voices that are now calling him a cultural icon once called him difficult. Now he's gone, and suddenly he's everyone's favorite symbol of progress. That's not legacy. That's exploitation.
What's good? Yes, I got the flower in my hair. Today's my daughter's birthday. She put the flower there, so I'm rocking it. What? It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. I just wanted to shout out and just spread some love and some good cheer. And you know, life is out here lifing, right? For me and for everybody else.
Look at the timeline. Less than 2 months after launching Noddlehood, Warner was gone. The podcast was just starting to hit its stride. He teased episodes about mental health, Black masculinity, the illusion of inclusion in media, topics that don't sit well with the sanitized version of diversity Hollywood prefers to sell. Warner wasn't interested in being palatable. He wanted to be honest. And according to 2 former producers, one of his final episodes included direct stories from unnamed Black actors who had faced retaliation after refusing to participate in image massaging contracts. So where is that episode? Why hasn't it surfaced? The files were reportedly stored on cloud servers and backup drives, but according to Warner's co-hosts, access has been restricted pending legal review. Who's reviewing it? Who requested the hold? Why hasn't anyone even released a clip, even just a tribute reel? Silence again. Chilling, familiar silence. And that brings us right back to the mystery still lurking at the center of this whole storm. The rescuer. The nameless 29-year-old Nicaraguan man who risked his life was reportedly in critical condition then vanished, discharged. No public statement, no interview, not even a first name. Costa Rican officials insist he had no connection to Warner, so who was he? A random tourist? A local? An innocent hero? Or was he someone placed close enough to intercept? Someone whose true role we're not supposed to know.
What he really had was a multi-decade career in Hollywood, spanning several different shows. I did a little bit of research before this, and he had about 84 credits on his resume before passing away at just 54 years old. And TMZ also obtained photo, possibly the last photo of him that we may even have ever seen on TMZ.com at the airport on July 13th coming into Costa Rica. It's just so tragic to look at that photo and think that just a week later he'd be passing.
3 separate sources tied to the podcast claim Warner had expressed concern about being watched while abroad. He reportedly mentioned being followed at his hotel just days before his beach outing. Were those just jitters? Or the gut instincts of a man who knew too much too soon? And let's not ignore the patterns building around all this. Katt Williams, Diddy's implosion, the quiet sidelining of outspoken Black creators, and the rising number of suspiciously timed tragedies. How long do we chalk all of this up to coincidence? How many accidents need to happen before we start connecting the dots? So we ask you, was Malcolm-Jamal Warner's final chapter written by the tides or by something or someone far more calculating? Could this drowning be part of a message? A playbook repeated across decades, warning others who think of speaking out? And if so, who's next? Let us know what you think. Drop a comment, share your theories, and tell us if you believe this was just the beginning of something darker, unraveling in the shadows of Hollywood. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and never stop asking who's really pulling the strings.